I want to understand, do you think that our tax revenue as a whole needs to increase as a percentage of GDP, or do you simply think that our tax settings at the moment are unfair and some people should pay a bit more and some should pay a bit less?
It will depend on a number of factors. One will be population growth and the changing nature of demographics. So how fast the population grows and how fast the economy grows will determine the answer to the proportion of government spending as a percentage of GDP.
Let's imagine for a moment that it's at about 2%, right, which is where the forecasts for growth are at the moment. So if it's at 2%, do you think in order to pay for the things that we need in the future, infrastructure, healthcare, all of that stuff with an aging population, we need to increase our tax revenue as a percentage of GDP?
But the big question mark is what happens with the working age population. So if the working age population stays the same and the population over the age of 65 grows, then yes, we will. We have to be honest about that. At the moment, so let's go back 10 years. There's 200,000 more people over the age of 65 than there were 10 years ago. There's another 400-odd thousand who are going to be there in the next 10 years. That means our population over the age of 65 will have gone from 14% to 21%. You can't say to people over the age of 65 that they can have everything that we gave to people when there were 14% of them, when there's 21%, and not increase government spending. The numbers just simply won't add up.
Right, and in order to increase government spending...
This is what we've said for quite a long time, the conversation around retirement age. And the answer, the point being, we cannot keep the retirement age where it is right now, funding it as we do right now. So we either need to put the retirement age up and continue to fund it as we're funding it right now, or we need to change the way we're funding it and leave it where it is. You can't keep funding the same and leave it the same. That option's already off the table, and I guess this is truly what they're kind of talking about here.
We'll get to debt in a moment and borrowing money, but we need to increase tax revenue as a percentage of GDP, as well as changing tax settings so that people who are earning wages, paying PAYE, aren't necessarily paying as much as a percentage of their wages, and we get tax revenue from other sources.
If we don't broaden New Zealand's tax base, the burden of all of that is going to fall on salary and wage earners and on GST, which is where the government gets most of its revenue at the moment. We're unique around the world in that regard. So if you look at other countries, they will have other forms of revenue. Now, we're not the only ones having this debate either. Nicola Willis is talking about new revenue measures. They're talking about a form of capital gains tax when it comes to funding their roads. They call it value capture. It's actually a form of capital gains tax.
But I mean, in order to be caught by a value capture tax, you actually have to be someone who has a house or a business near those new roads, right? So it's not a comprehensive capital gains tax.
No, but it does mean that they're having this debate as well. Yeah. They're also talking about how do you actually get more revenue for the government to do what it needs to do. The roads that they announced this week, there's billions of dollars that they're going to have to figure out how they pay for. They've put out billions of dollars worth of roads. Yeah. They don't know how they're going to pay for them yet. Now, that's either going to have to be increased user charges, because even if you, or some other form of tax.
We're here to talk about your policies, and we will, of course, have plenty of questions regarding those transport plans for the new government.
There you go. So Chippy started to get into election mode. Look, I think the one thing that they're not doing well enough right now, and we're about to go into a part of the conversation, Chippy, where they talk about capital gains tax, is I still feel like they're kind of going, well, we're working out our stuff now. It's like, you guys need to be in election mode now. If you want to see this as a first-term government, you should be going, yep, capital gains tax is on the way. We're going to do it. We haven't figured out all the details yet, whether we take it off family homes, whether we put it on family homes, but it's on the way. This sort of still middle grounding, they want to change the narrative around what they think about tax versus what National does without actually saying it now. It's almost a bit pointless. You know, anything to say from that first part of the conversation?
Yeah, a couple of things. It's nice to see an adult discussion about the fact that things need to change.
Yeah, for sure.
Like it's an acknowledgement that our demographics are changing and nothing is being done about it. And I'm glad to see that it is not a conversation of, yeah, maybe we need to put the retirement age up, because that affects a segment of our population that always gets shat on.
Yeah.
I think that as much as National are going to beat Labour around the head with talking about tax, whatever Labour do, National are going to beat them around the head for talking about tax. So just fucking talk about tax. Be the adults in the room and point out the fact that if you want roads, if you want infrastructure, you want hospitals, you want teachers and nurses and police to be paid better, it comes from tax. We all know this. And then point out to the fact that Bob, that might have a construction company with a few employees, is not going to get taxed out the arse. We're not after you. We're after the guys that are sitting on mountains of hoarded gold that aren't contributing as they can.